It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. So this is the next part in the restoration of this Stanley No.4 smoothing plane. So in the previous bit, I stripped it and I soaked it in that homemade rust removal solution, took it out, cleaned it up, and put it back together. And so we're kind of just moving along on that journey now, and this is what it looks like. So what I've done since that video was I've reassembled it, and as you can see, it's got that sort of dark, almost bluing effect from being soaked in that homemade rust removal solution. The tote's probably a little bit loose at the moment, but that's okay. I did also do the brass parts, which has given it sort of this reaction to it, which has given this rosy color, which is pretty cool. You can see the actual adjuster here has actually got that patina on it, which is pretty cool. So I've put it back together. I've given it a coat of mineral oil just to help reduce any further rust. So right now, it's probably almost at a point where we can use it. Now the actual blade itself has some nicks in it and it will need to be sharpened and cleaned, but I'm not going to do that right now. But we're going to look at this, the sole of the plane. There's a lot of pitting on it, and I want to understand and know how bad is this pitting, how uneven is this pitting, because we can kind of rectify it. The whole point of a smoothing plane is to give a nice flat smooth surface to your wood, to your timber, to your work surface that you're preparing and planing. So if it's pitted, it may not necessarily pick up the unevenness as nicely, and it will actually cause the plane to be moving up and down. So you want to try and get this as flat as possible. So we're going to flatten the sole. Now, firstly, you need to have the plane assembled. If you actually had this with the lever cap and with the blade out of it, the cast iron is under a lot of tension and pressure through all the screws, through the bolts, through the lever cap, that it actually puts stress upon the body. If you take it off and there's none of those stresses, the way that it bends, the way that it twists under the forces of it is different. And so the preference is that you actually have it fully assembled, and what you do is you retract the blade so it's not cutting. So right now it is actually noticeable. So I'm actually going to, am I going the right way or the wrong way? I'm going the wrong way now. So I need to move that in, and it's going to retract the blade. Okay, so the blade is fully retracted now. There's nothing that is catching on that, not doing anything to my fingers, thankfully. And then, because it's under all that tension, I can actually flatten the blade, flatten the sole, and it will keep that relative tension in it from it being fully assembled. So as you can see, it does have quite a bit of tension on that whole system there. So I have got a relatively flat board here. So this is just a piece of melamine coated particle board, MDF, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It came from a learning tower, those things that you see kids use to get steps up, but it's got sides on it to stop them from falling off, and they can grip it and look at countertops and, you know, stuff like that. And what I've got here is I've got a couple of grades of sandpaper. So I've got 80, I've got 180, and then we're going to go up to the 360 just to step it through. So we'll start with the 80 and see how that goes. We will just put a little bit of tape on the edges there to hold it down, and then we'll run the plane over it a little bit and just see how that turns out. Now I'm just going to do it on the edges here. And then I do have a spray bottle as well, just to add a little bit of, I guess, wetting to help with that. I don't know if this paper is actually wet or dry paper, but we'll see. Now, what some people do is that they'll get a pen or they get pencil and then they'll just scribe over it with the graphite so you can kind of see where it's actually sanding. So I'm kind of doing that very roughly now. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but there is a bit of visible cross-hatching. But also because it has this patina on it anyway, yeah, it should show up and it'll become shinier. Now I'm just going to make sure that the camera is actually recording. Yeah, so it's flashing red. Apologies for the movement there. Okay, and then let's have a look at. Okay, so there's definitely some high spots, and there's definitely some not so high spots. So there's a lot of that that's going to come off. And we can see there's some flat spots around here. And there's quite a lot of deep pitting. So that is a really deep pitting that is happening right there. I don't know if we're ever going to get down to that, but if the majority of this flattens out, so some of this stuff is a little bit less deep, but if we can get the main body, if we can kind of get the edges of that relatively flat, then I would be pretty happy with that. It's not sticking very well. Now I'm also not pressing very hard, mind you. I mean, it's 80 grit. You can see it's doing a pretty good job. It's quite rough. This paper is actually quite old, so I don't know how good it is, but I can see that it's already definitely doing something. You can see there's a lot of stuff coming off here. How much of that is actually the grit itself, I couldn't tell you. Probably a lot of it, so I don't know how effective that's going to be. But it is definitely doing something to this, including clogging up the actual mouth. Now I'm not putting a lot of weight on this. It's got quite a lot of weight by itself. So just letting it do. Its own thing. All right. Let's maybe just brush that off a little bit. Okay. So we can definitely see some flat spots turning up, which is good. The edges probably should, well, can do the edges at some point in time, but they're less of an issue. I'm not really rounding out these edges. They're quite crisp as it is. And I'm not using this as a shooting board plane anyway, so less of an issue. So that's starting to get a little bit thinner. I can't feel the actual pitting very much here compared to here and here, just underneath the mouth here. There's a bit of a chip there, but that's okay. Some pitting there. So we'll keep going on the 80. that going after a few more strokes. So this is actually quite smooth here. I mean, it looks like there's quite a bit of surface pitting on that, but it's actually feeling really smooth. That bit's probably a bit rough. That's a bit rough. That's definitely quite deep, and that's not going to come out anytime soon. The front's actually starting to feel okay, and the heel's actually feeling quite smooth. Even that looks probably worse than it actually is. So let's give it a little bit more. Okay, I can see that I've started taking off quite a lot at the front there. It's probably because as it's coming off, it's actually digging into there, and I can see it's the same over the back here where it's coming up and really taking the garnet off. So we're starting to get to, I guess, a bit of end of life for some of that area, but it is actually feeling quite reasonable. There's a bit of surface feel here. That's not too bad. It's really just this big patch here, this big patch there. Front of it's a little bit rough. The back of it's actually pretty good. All right, so let's just give it a little bit more. We'll try and use up more of this paper. I think that might be all right for at the 80 grit. How's that feeling? Yeah, that's really good here. That's still nice and deep. That's probably a little bit deep. That's never coming out. Rest of it's actually, it's okay. I think it's okay. It's definitely not going to get shiny anytime soon. But a lot of that sole now is actually, I think, in a reasonable condition, but we'll see. Obviously, if I do use this at a later point and I'm discovering that it's not doing a good job, I can always just do it again and just keep going and getting it nice and flat. But for expediting what we're seeing right now, I'm not going to do that. So the easiest way to clean this up, I guess, is we just peel this. And all of that grit, I guess, I can't, do I really want to, it doesn't feel grit, like really rough grit, like 80 grit sandpaper grit, that garnet. So it may have already been worn down to a smaller size, so I'm just going to get rid of it. I mean, this sandpaper is actually really old. I got it from an estate sale anyway, and it smells like fertilizer actually. So I don't really know why it smells like fertilizer, but it does. It is very not pleasant to the nose. Okay, let's move on to next size up. So this is 180 garnet, same kind of stuff. Probably will smell like fertilizer when I start using it. Maybe it was the adhesive that was put on it, some kind of vintage organic stuff that has that smell to it. I honestly don't know, but okay, so let's keep going. Whoop. Whoop. All right. Starting to sort of accidentally angle it and dig the paper in. Yeah, that's actually quite nice. I don't know if the 360 is going to do very much, but that's beautifully smooth already. I'm seeing some scratch lines in here, and I don't know if that's from the 80. But it's definitely not from corrosion. It's straight lines that are running back and forth now. So let's just work it straight on this, but it's feeling really nice. That really glides on that paper. Oh. I can feel some of those pitted areas. That one's starting to feel a little bit rough now. That's really nice. That one can still feel that. That one definitely. Yeah, I think it's in a good spot. Let's speed this up because I don't know if that's really going to do very much more for it. Unless if we go back to the 80. Just put that to the side. Let's brush that down. Gonna have to sweep the floor anyway, and then we're gonna go to wet or dry. So we can wet this one if we want to. I don't know if that stuff was actually meant to be wet or dry. Boop, boop, boop. Just give it a little bit of a wet. I can feel a lot more resistance on this. There's definitely a lot more contact happening on this. So let's just Wipe that a little bit. How does that feel? Oh, it's a little bit gritty. Just wait for that to dry, I think, a little bit better. So some of those deeper lines are still there, obviously from the 80, but I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's quite level. So if I just take my square there, there is a bit of a bowing in this, so that will be really interesting. Actually, that will be really interesting. It actually dips in the middle, according to that square. So, that will be interesting. But the sandpaper was actually catching it all, so I don't know how big that's going to be. All right, so right now the blade condition is not fantastic in that there are some really big chips in it. So if we look at the actual blade, there's some big chips in this, and of course we can actually get that out. We can grind that back out. So while I've got the 360 is more coarse than my diamond plate has, because the coarsest that my diamond plate has is 400. So while this is out, I might as well actually pass this on it and see if we can take some of that off. So the back actually feels really smooth, but this of course has some pitting as well. So we're going to flatten the back of the plane on this. I mean the iron. Alright, so I can, not too fussed about back here, but over here, it's definitely done a little bit of cleaning up on that. That's nice and smooth. There is still some marks here, so it's probably not got all the way down, but let's just go a little bit more. Put some front pressure on that, make sure it's in contact. Yeah, it's got some pitting on there, but that's, I mean, it's quite deep. Over time, that obviously, as the blade is going to be used and sharpened, that'll get past that. But for now, I don't think there's going to be terribly much value in getting past that in terms of depth. So let me get my sharpening jig. Is here the Mark II honing guide. So there's a video about this already, so if you want to check that out, you can. And this is a 2-inch blade. Yes, it is a 2-inch. So we will line this up with 2 inches. Tighten that down. Standard 25, standard angle in the middle. We'll flip that over, and then I believe it will go this way. So we will feed it through the back, line it up with the edge, up to that mark, and we will tighten down on the two so it'll be flat and even. so that that will not be lifting on one side or the other. Just make sure that we do it even tightening. Yep, there we go. Nice and firm. Finger wrist tight. Then we can loosen that, slide it off to the side, and now we're set for a 25 degree. So just like that. Straight off there's this big great dirty gouge because there is crud on that. So we're going to just try and maybe take care of that off on the side somewhere. Oh, it looks like it's mostly gone. Now that's starting to get shiny over on that back edge already. So let's there's still any grit left on this? Has it already been worn off? No, it's doing something. We've already got a, if I just tilt this back and forth, you'll see the shiny edge is starting to build up to the front now of the blade. Maybe if I do this way. Definitely working its way up to the front now. Although, can't really tell if there's, oh no, it's definitely still there. It's scratching my nails. Probably not very much though. So it looks like there might have been a micro bevel on this because that's a really clean edge right there, and then there's a slight width there. So let's go back up to the 180 and see if we can expedite that then. Yeah, so there's quite a lot of pitting there, but that edge is, yeah, they definitely had a micro bevel on this, but I'm not sure what that angle was, maybe 30 degrees. I don't know if it's factory or the previous owner actually added that micro bevel, which they very may well have, and that's probably why it had chips in it as well, because they were trying to plane through some very hard timber. Let's try and bring it back down to a standard 25 degrees then. That is so shiny that it is amazingly good looking. There's a lot of material to take off there. There's definitely no burr forming on it because it's still just trying to take that front off. Maybe if I just take it down a little bit more and then I'll adjust it to 30 and then we can just refinish that 30 degrees. 25, 30 is really not unusual. Some people will just put the old ruler trick, just a thin metal ruler on the blade when they actually sharpen to do a micro bevel on it. That is still about 1 millimeter out now. Okay, but I'm pretty happy with how nice that 25-degree section is. So let's just try a 30-degree on that. So let's just put this back on. Okay, let's take the blade out. We'll loosen it anyway. So for a standard to a 30, it's going to go to there. 30 degrees in the yellow. Flip it over. Line it back up. And tighten it back up. Just like that. Take off the angle guide. Okay, so now we're on 30. Let's see if that was what it was doing. It was. So I can see 25 and then that reflection of 30 straight away. Okay. Yeah, that was very clean. The problem is now the chipping on this blade is actually almost the same depth. This deepest chip here, this one that you can probably see just on the back here, is actually right up to where that 25-degree angle is. So what I'm going to have to do at some point in time later on anyway is I'm going to probably grind it back to 25 to get rid of that chip. But for right now, let's not do that. We're just going to speed this up a little bit. Let's just take the clamp off. And let's just switch over to finishing off what we need to do for this. I haven't even done the back of that, but we can deal with that in a moment. Move my trusty old radio, some wire brushes, soap, onto my sharpening tile. There we go. And then there is, I normally have a wedge that I put under because it rocks. So I'm just going to put that there, and that stops the rocking. So 400, 600, 1000, 1200. Technically, I think these two are switched around, or that this hasn't ever really been broken in properly, and then strop. So actually, I'm going to just go straight onto 400 without water. Go the other way. Have a look. Very good. I can feel just a slight burr starting to form. So let's keep going a little bit longer. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 30. Alright, so yeah, there's a very fine burr just feeling on the edge of that. There's a little bit of a camber line that I'm actually seeing on that as well, which I'm not actually pressing on it from the middle or the edges too hard, I don't think. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, you can start to see that there is a little bit forming. Let's go another round of 30. Okay, so normally when you get it to this kind of level, it just becomes a maintenance sharpen rather than a full sharpen, unless you've actually damaged the edge of that. The angle is starting to come back further deep, so that depth now of that chip is starting to be less of an issue. You can see it's still not flat. I mean, I'm going to rock it so you can see on the light, hopefully. But yeah, maybe I'll just keep this at 30. I just have to remember it's going to be at 30 and not 25. All right. And we'll go up to 12. Very shiny, and I can see a very fine burr there on the edge, just on that side. And then onto compound. And it's nice and shiny, and I can still feel a very, very fine burr on the back of that, which is excellent. So let's carefully take it out that way so we don't damage that edge that we've just put on it, and then we'll put it on the strop again and just, there you go. So I've just pushed that burr, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's a very fine amount of reflective metal on the edge there from, you can kind of maybe see it on the strop. I can see just the glittering of that there. That is that front burr. Now it'll fall off anyway upon cutting, but this is just to clean off the back. And then if we want to do the paper test, just some random bit of paper. Let's just find a dodgy edge here. That was really more of a tear than a cut, wasn't it? I don't know if I can put the tension on this. It's also because there's nicks in this, but it does give a nice clean cut. So I'm just going to put that on the side. Let's see how flat this is. Yeah, that's pretty flat. You can see the lines going all the way across, a little bit thinner on this side, but okay, we'll quickly pass it up through the ranks. Okay, so now that is quite nice. You can see I flattened that, so it should have good contact. So we're gonna get the screw. Where are you? There you are. Put it back in. Hey, there we go. And let's bring it up just to about where it needs to go. Then we can tighten it down. And then hopefully if we look at it, it's got a little bit of a bowing in it. So in the middle of it there's a little bit of a light gap, but it is what it is for now. I don't know if it's because of the actual chip breaker or if it's the blade that's actually got that bow in it. But for now, we will just go with it. Let's put that over here. And then let's reassemble the plane. So the blade is going to go face down. It is already quite high and was out of the mouth. And then the cap iron, on it goes. All right, and let's adjust it so it's somewhat level. There we go. Ready to try and do some action. So let us first of all clear this, put this back. Let us put this box away. Let's brush some of this sanding garnet off. Okay, that back up there. We need something that is already kind of planed. All right, so here is a piece of timber that has already been roughly smoothed. It's not perfect, but that will do. Here is my plane stop, and we want to just kind of identify which way the grain is going. So I guess we kind of go this way because we would be potentially peeling up, so we'll try this way. And we will put some mineral oil on the bottom, see what kind of shavings we can get out of this. Alright, so right now it's quite far and sounds a bit rough, but you can see it's depositing stuff that was actually still stuck in the corrosion. But once we start sort of getting into it, hopefully that will clear up. Let's just brush that off. Okay. Now we start the advance. Am I going the right way? Is that going the right way? Yes, it is. All right, so nothing. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. It's just kissing the surface of this. Look at how thin and wispy that is. That is awesome. So I'm just going to go a little bit deeper. Nice. That. I don't know if you could read through that, but yeah, you can kind of see through that. That is a good thickness of shaving right there. Beautiful. And the thing is, right, I mean, it's a little bit thick on that side and it's not really coming through on that side. So I need to, that goes the wrong way. So we'll go a little bit that way. See if that, now it's too much on that side. So, ooh, so see, it's on that side and that started coming up a bit. Let's just lift off that and back it off. That's still quite heavy on that side. And now it's back on that side, nothing on this side. So this is a really delicate adjustment. We're hobbing the middle, but is that because the wood is bowed? If I go this way, let's just back it out a little bit more. Now we're starting to produce on both sides. All right, let's just, okay, so it could just be the timber, because there's obviously more on that side. But then on this side, there's more on that side. So it could be actually cupped that way. But look how glossy that is. Like, you can see the shine on that. And that is, it's gorgeous. So now on this side, we can see how not so shiny and how dirty that surface is. Let's just back this out a little bit. So no shavings or minimal contact. Let's just go a little bit. A little bit more. A bit more. There we go. Now before I should have done this wobble test, but see how loud that sounds? On this side, whoa, okay, so there's quite a bit of, it's not flat, right? You can tell that it's actually got quite a lot of twist in it. If I was actually able to plane it down right, then it won't have the twists. But right now I think you shouldn't be using a smoothing plane for that. You should be using a jack plane. And the twisting is actually explaining why one side is higher than the other. But in terms of producing really beautiful, thin, translucent, readable, you know, you can read print through that, right? Like, you know, you can see the letter 3 through that. That is really, really nice. So I'm going to actually end it there because, you know, if you're not really into just watching somebody peel micron thick bits of timber through that, then it's going to be really boring while I just gush over how thin these shavings are. But I just wanted to end by saying that this has actually been a remarkably quick and easy restoration. All I've done is I've taken it apart, I've soaked it in the homemade rust removal solution. I've scrubbed it, cleaned it, oiled it, reassembled it after sharpening the blade, and it's taken an hour, really, just under an hour, okay, for me to actually do all of this. Flatten the sole somewhat, and then cleaned up the blade and given it a very quick sharpen because it was in a good condition, and I'm able to produce some absolutely beautiful, thin, wispy shavings. And this side, which was the rough side, the dirty side, for the areas that I can actually plane, because it is twisted, as I've mentioned, right? It's not a warping kind of terminology, but look at all that. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, it's got that luster, it's got that shine to it, it's got a gleam to it that matches the other side that we've got. And you can see sort of the little bird's eye or speckling, whatever that's technically called, coming out of this. So I'm really, really super happy that we've been able to clean this up. I need smaller brushes, I think, because that's not getting in there. There we go, at the risk of my lungs. To add to the collection, Stanley, Bailey No.4, made in England. Little bit of effort, but a really great result has come from this repair, restoration, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, a cleanup to produce some lovely, lovely shavings. So hopefully you enjoyed that, the last two parts, and that's given you some inspiration that if you find something that was in a terrible rusty state and you didn't think it was worthwhile, but you could get it cheap, it does not take a lot of effort to bring it back to life and make it a beautiful, functional workhorse. So thank you very much for coming along and checking out this video. Please hit that like, subscribe, bell notification, the usual that us small fledgling YouTubers like to promote. Leave a comment below if you've got any thoughts and ideas around what I could look at or try next or do. Yeah, love and appreciate you. And of course, as always, until next time, happy clacking.